Chappell Roan may be one of the biggest pop stars right now, but the attention from fans has been so much that she's had to actively ask them to just tone it down. And she is not the only one. So today on the podcast, the group chat is here. You'll hear what happens when fan culture goes way too far. I'm Alamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Okay, let me just first acknowledge, like right off the bat, that there are a lot of artists out there who would just do just about anything to have the year that Chappell Roan has been having. Like, you just don't get breakthroughs like this one. People who were barely known a year ago, and now they're just truly everywhere. But it has come with a cost. Yes, she's now selling out those like really gigantic venues basically everywhere that she goes. But she's also had to contend with some odd behavior, let's say, from rabid fans, people who kind of take it too far. And we've kind of grown accustomed to celebrities just saying, well, that's the price of fame. But not Chappell. Chappell did not do that. Listen to this.
I don't care that it's normal. I don't care that this crazy type of behavior comes along with the job, the career field I've chosen. That does not make it okay. That doesn't make it normal. I don't want whatever the you think you're supposed to be entitled to whenever you see a celebrity. I don't give a if you think it's selfish of me to say no for a photo or for your time or for a hug. That's not normal. That's weird. It's weird how people think that you know a person just because you see them online or you listen to the art they make. That's weird.
So that's a part of a video that Chappell Roan posted this week. It's in conversation, I think, with a thing that Halsey said a few weeks back, which is she said that hate from her fans made her wonder why she returned to making music again. So today on the podcast, I want to talk about like what is normal behavior, normal fan behavior, and what, if anything, can fans do when it gets outside of the range of normal. Culture critics Niko, Stratis, and Tyler Foggatt are both here. We're also joined by Eliza McLamb, who's a musician living in Brooklyn, who just shared a piece about her own experiences with fans. Eliza, Niko, and Tyler, welcome to the show, everybody.
Good morning.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, listen,
Thank you.
I'm excited to do this. Listen, Niko, I'm going to start with you. There is a lot of pain, I think, listening to Chappell's voice. When you listen to her, what comes up? What occurs to you listening to that?
Yeah, I mean, pain is apt, right? It's that like, you know, being so frustrated and being like, not really like having a lot of power, but also being powerless to really do anything at the exact same time, like wanting to curb this behavior and really spelling it out. And, you know, like when she's saying that's weird, and she's sort of reiterating these words, you can really sort of hear that in her voice, right? Of like, I don't like what is happening here, this like meteoric rise that she's been having over the last, really like the last year, the last few months especially, but like, you know, more and more and more, she's become this famous person that we do or don't know if she ever set out to be. And like, you know, that's got to be a really hard moment of knowing it only gets worse from here, right? And trying to stem an unstoppable tide. Like, it's like trying to push back the ocean, not really being able to do it, but really be sort of that desperation to be able to do it. And to give voice to that frustration is a really hard and vulnerable thing.
And just to contextualize it for people, like The Rise and Fall of Midwestern Princess, which is the album that Chappell has out, came out last September. And when she came to Toronto, she played, I think it was the Opera House. Like, we're talking about a room that is like 600, 700 people. Chappell is now at a place where she is performing, headlining festivals or spaces that are just like tens of thousands of people, and she sort of holds their attention. People are so invested in this artist. But this also kind of come with a flip side, Tyler. Do you want to talk a little bit about just the stuff that she's had to contend with over this last 11 months or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting because she's become famous so quickly that people have been accusing her of being an industry plant, which is just insane given her career and how it started. I mean,
she's been working for a while.
Yeah, I mean, she's been in the industry since 2017 when she first got a record deal. And then she was actually dropped by the record company in 2020 because she was underperforming. And then she had to move back home to Missouri where she was working in a coffee shop. And so it's really only recently that she's become incredibly famous. I think she went from like 1 million Spotify listeners to 40 million in less than a year, which is just insane to think about. And she's been talking at some of these shows she's been having, like she performed at Lollapalooza and broke a record for the largest crowd in like the festival's history.
Yeah.
And it was at one of these shows where she was like breaking a record for the audience, basically, where she was talking about how her career was just going really fast and she was having a hard time even keeping up with it. And so I'm just curious to, to what extent her team has prepared for this. It seems like she's definitely someone who is all of a sudden mobbed by fans wherever she goes, and is being asked for a lot of things, and people are expecting a lot of her, and she never really asked for this, and she's not prepared for it.
I mentioned Halsey earlier. She's also been struggling with Halsey has been struggling with a few weeks ago wrote this piece that's called where she said so-called fans have been meaner than anyone else on the planet. It's interesting to me that Halsey and Chappell Roan are both artists who made a very conscious choice to say, I'm going to separate my persona on stage from my persona off stage. And that's sort of in an attempt to say, I want to protect myself. I want to protect myself from like what might happen if the fame kind of goes too far. Tyler, would you expect that intentional separation would give them any protection actually in real life? Or have we kind of gone past that, do you think?
I think we're a little past that. I mean, one of the, I saw one person on Twitter, X, say after Chappell posted this video. Yeah, after, Chappell posted that video kind of explaining how uncomfortable she was with what's been happening. I saw someone tweet that she should dye her hair and start wearing a wig when she performs, and essentially kind of advocating for like a Hannah Montana type thing.
Yeah.
Because maybe that would actually help separate the, stage persona from, her private self.
Yeah.
And I think it probably would take something like that where it's, she's not so, distinctive and recognizable on the street for people to actually kind of take the separation seriously. I just don't think that people kind of buy that anymore.
I appreciate the Hannah Montana reference because I often sing the best of both worlds. And I kind of go, this doesn't sound like a realistic thing, Miley. Sorry to say, that doesn't exist. This idea, this division between Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana. Eliza, you posted this personal essay in response to Chappell Roan's video. You're describing how you can relate. Do you want to talk about some of the uncomfortable moments that you've experienced with fans in the last little while?
Sure. I mean, the thing that really struck me about Chappell's video and what I heard is this interesting collapse of, it's not okay to dox me. It's not okay to stalk me. Obviously, we can all listen to that and say, of course. And then she kind of says something like, and it's weird to want a picture with me, and it's weird to want some of my time. And that, I think, is where we got the interesting internet response of, oh, but that is maybe something I would ask. And I don't, maybe isn't that part of the job? And it was this interesting thing where I recognized exactly the feeling she was having, which I think, Niko pointed out earlier, how Chappell kind of repeats like, this is weird, this is weird. It's, to me, I think I recognized a familiar feeling of like feeling trapped by the sense of entitlement that people have to your space and your time, where it feels like people are just increasingly moving closer to you and in on you, not just you, the character that you reproduce, for them, but you, the person. And in the piece, I wrote about a specific experience of that, although I have had many. And I am not very famous. I'm actually not quite famous at all. In the piece, I call it like cross the street famous. If you're at a concert of mine, I get mobbed, but then I can cross the street and nobody knows who I am. So that's, to set the scene, my level.
Yeah.
But I had this experience at a concert one time, sold out in Chicago, amazing show, had such a great time. And then I walked off stage and was trying to enter back in through the venue. It was locked on both sides and people were streaming out from the crowd. So it was a full, sold out crowd just surrounding me, hundreds of people. And I still had my earplugs in. I was looking around. I was very frantic, very scared, when hundreds of people surround you. And I'm like, how am I going to even get back in through the door?
Yeah.
But I just tried to like keep smiling, move back in, whatever. And then later that night, I got a DM saying something like, girl, you were just so rude to me outside of your Chicago show. Remember who pays your bills.
Oof.
And that to me was really, I was like, oh, like, have I made a mistake in like what I've promised people, because to me, it's like, if you show up to a concert, you should expect me to play the songs. You should expect me to play a full set. You should expect to be able to like buy merch. If I promise a meet and greet, which I never do, that can be expected. But I was like, it seems as though there's a different expectation that people are having. And that makes me really uncomfortable. And it's kind of eerie in that way.
Some artists sort of do the thing where like the promise is the all the time availability. Like I remember, I want to say maybe 2017, 2018, you know, Shawn Mendes sort of had this policy, which like you hear now and go like, that's an unreasonable policy to maintain. That's nuts. And the policy was he would never turn down a fan photo ever. And so like if anybody ever asked him for a photo, he would do it. And he came out of this one hotel and there was something like 500 people who were like, oh my God, so excited for a photo. And he lined them up across, like down the street. And he just went down the line taking a photo with everybody. Now, there is something that I hear in that of being like, oh, the job is to increase the reach. Like I'm trying to sort of like reach as many people as possible. But then sometimes when you're increasing the reach, that also increases the amount of entitlement that maybe some people might have. How do you reconcile the idea that you are trying to reach more people, Eliza, but you're also trying to say like, but that's not the thing that I'm promising you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at a really interesting time in history and a time to be famous, because I think some of it is just literally built into how we make people famous and how famous people have to interact in the world, which is that the famous person used to be on your television screen. And there was even, you know, there is an innate separation when you see someone like that being like, oh, they're kind of in a different world. They're not like me. Totally different when we think of Chappell Roan. She was on TikTok making like, you know, silly videos like the rest of us in 2020. And that kind of integration, I think, makes us, you know, everything kind of collapses when that's true. For me as an artist, I actually find it much more respectful to be honest with people about the fact that I am not their friend and I am not their employee and I am an artist, and I would prefer that they interact more directly with my work rather than like the projection of me, the person I am, that they are receiving on their end. I think the parasocial relationships are certainly incredibly lucrative and are a lot of people's ticket to this like exploding fame. I mean, I think of Taylor Swift, who somehow makes friendship bracelets feel at home in a stadium, you know, like that. It's very lucrative, but also she's written several albums about how horrible it is to be a person who everyone wants to take a photo with and who people feel that kind of intimacy with. So it's a balance. For me, I think the way I've chosen to machete through the woods is by trying to be honest with people. And the piece that I wrote is part of sharing that discomfort that I wanted to talk about.
The Taylor Swift example, I think, is an interesting one, and I want to come back to that in just a moment. My name is Alamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion, and today on the show we're talking about when fan behavior gets a little bit out of control and what artists can do to actually push back on that. Culture critics Niko Stratis and Tyler Foggatt are here. Eliza McLamb is here. She's had to deal with some of this as a musician. Niko, I think maybe we need to situate ourselves in like how we got to this place where this is considered like a normal sort of price of fame. You know, when Backstreet Boys say, let me tell you now, there are prices to fame. They're talking about this, except it's gotten so much worse in the last 30 years or so. And so maybe you can talk about, you know, why we can't really understand anything that's happening without talking about the particular way that fans are engaging with celebrities now seems to be born out of a parasocial relationship that's been accelerated by the internet. What do you make of how we got to this place?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, the internet is the villain in every story, right? Like,
okay.
Time was like, you know, Backstreet Boys, like looking at that pop era, you know, this is a nascent internet era when we're all just sort of starting to be online and we're starting to figure out how we communicate in those spaces, you know, and that is very different than where it is now. You know, like we are like, when we talk about parasocial relationships, stan culture, whatnot, this is an eternally online fan base, right? That sort of exists in this space. And there's an immediacy there. And there's an expectation of immediacy there, and that connection feels more real because it's so direct, right? Like in my pocket, I have a phone, and in my phone are all of my friends, and all of my friends are people I have never met, but it all means something, right? Like you can so easily tether yourself to this thing, and once you do that, it's really hard to disconnect that, like that sense of self-worth. And you know, the more you invest that, and then it's so easy to find a community of people that feel the same way. You all sort of speak a similar language, and it's easy to understand your behavior is normal when you can look to the left and the right of you, and that situation is normalized amongst those people, right? Like, you know, and it is a thing that has just sort of become so accepted so easily because we have long understood the price of fame is to be, a person that people know, like this was true when we only had magazines to look at. And, it has only sort of grown in an internet age. And now it is just this impossible thing where, a lot of artists, we hear from artists that are like, I am expected to be on TikTok. I'm expected to be, personal on Instagram or whatever, because you're trying to sell that authenticity. We have put authenticity up for sale to such a degree that it's so hard to discern what's actually real anymore. And when somebody is real, like Chappell is, then people push back at it and be like, well, no, we didn't want this. Like, well, that's a real person telling you how she really feels, not how she really feels because she wants you to buy tickets to a concert. And like the lines between real and real, real for sale have sort of like been blurred to the point of being invisible.
Well, I was going to say, Tyler, in many ways, we've sort of like come to rely on the internet as the path to creating stardom and creating celebrities. And so as a result, does it feel like it's maybe too late to put the genie back in the bottle? Like this is just kind of a built-in expectation of what it means to build fame through the internet.
I think so. Like when you sort of think about the, the different celebrities who we have and which ones have been able to live a more private life, and the ones who are unable to, there's kind of like an age difference and a sort of like a seniority difference. And so my feeling is that if you are a young and up and coming artist and you want to develop a fan base and become as famous as Chappell Roan is, then there is a certain amount of kind of offering yourself up as a sacrifice to your fans on the internet and in real life when they come to talk to you in a coffee shop. And then once you have Beyonce level fame, you can hide out in your bunker and only communicate with people online, if at all. So yeah, I kind of think it's a little, I think it's impossible to go back at this point.
Tyler, I want to rewind us to about 17 years ago, and I want us to listen to a young Taylor Swift, because Eliza brought up Taylor Swift, and I want to talk about this. So this is a young Taylor Swift 17 years ago who had this to say about the so-called inconvenience of being famous.
I hear a lot of people complaining about being celebrities, and they're like, it's so hard because I can't even go shopping anymore without people asking for my autograph all the time, and everybody's always staring at me, and my life is so hard. And I just feel like you have to have a perception change when your life shifts into the gear of everybody knows who you are. It's a good thing. You can't look at it as an inconvenience, or else you'll feel inconvenienced nonstop.
I gotta say, like, this is fearless era Taylor Swift. Like, this is a long time ago Taylor Swift. But this clip was posted on TikTok, and again, it's from years ago. Do you think that attitude that she had then sort of contributed to where she is today?
Yes, I think this is why she is one of the most famous people in the world. I think that she has been very open from the start of her career about how much she wanted this. She wants fame. She wants this connection with her fans. She wants the fans to feel as if they know her. And I think that it's this exact mentality that explains a lot of the Taylor Swift phenomenon that a lot of non-fans kind of puzzle over. I think that this actually is maybe the key to understanding Taylor Swift, is that TikTok, despite the music in the background of it.
I will say that the vibe of social media certainly felt a little bit different then than it does now. I think like it was sort of like a relatively nascent universe at the time. But Eliza, when you like hear Taylor talking like that, and then we sort of like fast forward to the idea that she can make a stadium sort of feel like this like kind of like intimate relationship, do you think it's the kind of thing where she can just kind of sort of force this attitude in relationship to fame, and then everybody else says, yeah, fame is not a big deal, in fact it's not a stressor at all, and everyone can just follow suit because she has kind of set that tone? Or is she kind of in a different bracket, would you say?
Well, I think the whole thing, excuse me, I think the whole thing is very gendered. I think when she was, coming up as this like white American country pop star, her whole modus operandi was like, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm America's sweetheart. I've never had a problem with anything. Anybody can treat me however they want. And my power is that I can write a song about it. And like, that was it. And I think if you look at her development now, you're just talking pre-show about how excited we are for Reputation. Yeah. That's her point of saying, actually, I can do something about it. Actually, I am a legal entity. Actually, I am a corporation. That clip of her, which I find it very funny that people are circulating it as like a sort of like, gotcha, Chappell. Like, this is how a real artist feels. Like, Taylor Swift is 18 in that. And I feel in many ways would backtrack almost everything that she has said from that point to the point that she is now. I think a lot of it is about her struggle with image and feeling that fan entitlement and stuff. I think definitely Taylor Swift has changed the way that any female artist is going to have to, navigate, if only just because you'll never get that number one spot. But obviously, like in like the culture, she's changed a lot around what it means to be a pop star. But even she, I feel like she had that song But Daddy I Love Him on her last record, which was basically a note to her fans being like, buzz off. Like, I'm dating the bad boy. You're not my mom, which is like something I think I understand that perspective from her at 18 when she had adults monitoring and running her career and reminding her that she must be grateful, that she must be apolitical, that she must be placid, blonde, white girl, country pop, like I understand that. But I do think even she has changed her tune since then.
But can I just say, like, we understand the sort of the torture post department as this album that is filled with all these notes, Niko, that says, you know what? Some people can take it a little bit too far. But she does this kind of what to me is a bit of a magic trick where she says, like, no, like real fans would never do that. Like, even in the album's construction, she's like, the people I want to speak to are not the people who would take it too far. Like, are the people who kind of like know the boundaries. She seems to still want to hold on to the attention, the energy, and the people who are like, yeah, we can still ask a lot of you, but some people just know when to not go too far. What's your read on this, Niko?
Yeah, I mean, look, some people know when to not go too far, but like, she does have this, like, she is this, like, if we could like decipher and figure out all of the individual pieces of her that have created this like unattainable level of fame that she has now, then everybody would either be better off or we would destroy the world. There's no middle ground there anymore. But like, she has this remarkable ability to make every single person feel like they're the special one who she's not talking about, right? When she's talking about somebody that's, if a fan's acting, in a way that she doesn't like or whatever, they don't feel like they're that person. That's somebody else. But if she's talking about somebody that, that she has a connection to or whatever, like it's easy to see yourself in that because you want to be reflected in her light. It sounds like I'm describing a demigod. And I promise that I'm not.
You kind of are. It's
like,
100%. Yes.
I mean, I kind of am, like to a certain degree, but like, she sort of has this innate ability to make people, I mean, this is part of what makes her so successful, right? It's like everybody feels like they belong in her. It's why I always describe myself as Taylor agnostic, because it is so church-like to a degree in that there's a community around it, right? And that community is very supportive, and it sort of allows itself to either keep itself in check or use its power for whatever force they determine, whether it's running journalists off the internet or fighting Ticketmaster. And this has been a hard thing for other people to sort of manage and maintain. It's why nobody hears from Mitski anymore, is because she sort of left the internet and music once she attained this level of fame of like, I don't want this. This doesn't make me feel like a real person. I'm going to back out.
Okay, so I want to go back to Chappell Roan in that context, but let me frame the question like this. I think about artists like Mitski, artists like Frank Ocean, artists like Lauryn Hill, who have this kind of adverse relationship to fame, which is to say, yes, I'm famous. Yes, you can expect certain things of me if you come to the show. But actually, I still expect myself to be an artist. I still sort of expect myself to go to the place of creation. I'm an artist first, and then I'm a commodity second. And there's something that is like a bit of a delicate balance to maintain. And with a couple of minutes left in the show, I want to kind of go around and talk about Chappell Roan and your prediction. Like your predictions. Do you predict that she continues to get bigger, given that she's already kind of trying to frame herself as being like, hey, I'm an artist first, I'm a commodity second. Maybe sometimes you guys need to back off. Tyler, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is maybe the start of her just trying to set boundaries with fans. And I think that there's probably a way to do that where, there isn't this collapse that, we were talking about earlier of, kind of conflating people doxing you with people asking for an autograph or a photo. I think, I always think about Anne Hathaway, who in this kind of like elementary school teacher like way will come out of a limousine and there will be all of these fans. And then she will say, here's how we're going to do this. You're going to get in a line. I'm going to spend 30 seconds with each of you. I will sign your book and then I will take a photo with you. And then I'm going to go to my event and we are not going to speak anymore. And I feel like this can turn some people off. It would probably turn Taylor Swift fans off. But I feel like a lot of people, like I really respect her for handling it in that way. And I would love for Chappell to surround herself with a team that can sort of help her facilitate that sort of interaction with her fans since her fan base has become so big.
Niko, 10 seconds to you. I know that's not a lot of time.
I mean, no, Marion, what Tyler said, like, I really hope that we do get to hear more from Chappell. I think it really dependent is like the community around her, the team around her, the supports that she has. But I think her setting boundaries now will hopefully either lead her to success or be the reason we point at if we don't hear from her in 4 years to be like, well, that's why we don't hear from her anymore. It's because she decided. But it feels like she's taking agency, which I think is a really important thing.
Okay, now I'm unfortunately out of time. I'm so sorry, Eliza. We got to leave it there. But
No
Niko
worries.
Stratis, Eliza McLamb, and Tyler Foggatt, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
My name is Alamin Abdul Mahmoud. This show is called Commotion. And you know what? We'll see you tomorrow.